Good afternoon, students. Welcome to Vishnu IAS Academy. My name is Gautham, and I'm here to give you a small briefing on the viability, the manageability, and the advantages of taking political science and international relations as an option for civil services. Now, you know that for students who are preparing for civil services, one of the tricky questions is which optional should we choose? Now, you know that this is a very important point to ponder upon, because in case you choose a wrong optional, it reduces your chances of making it into the services by at least 50%. I'd say even more than that, in fact. So picking the right optional is very important. And you know that the UPSC had given a series of optionals, primarily because the aptitude, the acumen, and the approach of students tend to differ. Therefore, there is an array of optionals from which students can choose. And political science is one of such those optionals. Now, as I told you, what should be the criteria for a student before choosing an optional? Now, you know that there have been a lot of talks and a lot of videos on several criteria that were identified in selecting an optional. So very briefly, I'll try and present to you what factors that you should keep in mind before choosing an optional. The first, and of course, a very important criteria is personal affinity of the student. How much is the student finding an interest in optional? This is very important primarily because of the fact that the candidate requires to spend a lot of time with the optional. He has to, gain expertise in every nook and corner of the syllabus in the optional. And for that, candidate requires to have interest in the optional. Therefore, personal affinity or the interest of the student in the optional is very important. Obviously, you know that you'll have to spend a lot of time with your optional. Let me say about 4 to 5 months till the time you get proper expertise. And only interest in that optional can sustain you for so long. Kabatti, having interest in optional is a very important criteria before you select an optional. You know, if you don't select an optional which suits your aptitude and your interest, you're stuck up with the optional. You'll find it a very big struggle to get along with the optional. And that would, put your chances of making it to the services, it gives a setback to your chances of getting into the services. Therefore, whether you have an interest in the optional or not, whether the optional is able to absorb your attention, whether the optional is propelling you, motivating you to, look further, explore deeper, that is a very important factor that should be kept in mind by all the students. So the first thing that you check before you select an optional is see how much the optional is, able to absorb your attention, how much the optional is able to motivate you to read and to explore further. You can do that by picking up some topics at random in the syllabus and going through some readings from internet or from any other source. You can just go through the readings. You can see if the topic is absorbing you, whether the topic is engaging your attention or not. You can see whether you're able to understand the drift of the subject or not. This is what you're supposed to try and see before you pick up an option. Therefore, personal affinity and interest of the student, that I'd say is a very important factor. The second is the performance of the optional, whether the optional is performing well or not in the civil services examination. Now that can be, seen in the way the optional is performing in the recent years. Let's say from 2015 onwards. The success rate of the optional, how much is the optional, what's the rate of success of the optional? That should be another criteria that you should keep in mind. There are some optionals which might not be doing so well, in spite of an enormous amount of labor that you put into the optional, it might still not be able to deliver enough marks for you. The success rate might be very less for the optional. That can be a negative factor or an adverse factor before you selecting an optional. Okay, so performance of the optional also is an important criteria. The third one is availability of guidance. The availability of guidance is so very important. Obviously, in consulting the right literature, in clearing your doubts, in getting to know the subject properly, in evaluation of your answer scripts. For all this, you require proper guidance. You require proper mentorship for the optional. So whether there is an availability of that mentorship and that guidance for the optional or not is also a very important criteria. In recent days, that there is a lot of availability of mentorship for almost all the optionals. barring a few optionals which are not so very popular. Okay. So availability of guidance, proper guidance, my dear friends, proper guidance. Somebody who knows the subject, somebody who had been experienced in teaching and mentoring students to success with that optional. That should be another criteria that you should keep in mind before you select an optional. Okay. And the fourth important criteria which I suggest that a student should keep in their mind before selecting an optional is how much is the optional contributing to a candidate's preparation for general studies. Now, this also becomes very important primarily because of the fact that the present scheme of the examination has been so designed in such a way that general studies, the 4 common papers account for 1000 marks. An optional accounts for 500 marks. Previously, this was not the scenario. In the previous scheme, there used to be 2 optionals and there used to be general studies. And the 2 optionals in the previous scheme accounted for 1200 marks and general studies accounted in the previous scheme for 600 marks. Therefore, the weightage for the optional was double compared to GS in the previous scheme of the examinations. Therefore, candidates were required to be very strong in their optionals to clear the examination. But in the present scheme, you know that the 4 common papers account for 1000 marks and GS accounts for 500 marks. It means the weightage for the 4 common papers is double compared to optional. Obviously, you cannot get through the examination unless you are strong in your optional. Optional is required for scoring high marks so that you can land up in a good service. But to clear the examination, to go to the interview, you require to be very strong in GS. Now, very obviously, you know that GS is double in terms of marks compared to your general study, compared to your optional. It shows that the preparation for general studies also is a very, very critical factor, So, the 4th criteria which I have identified in a candidate's approach towards selecting an optional is how much is that optional contributing to a candidate's preparation for general studies. Okay. Now, we know that if you are able to tick all these boxes, if you're able to find personal interest in optional, if you have seen the performance of optional in recent times and you have observed that the optional is having a reasonably good success rate of, let me say, 8 to 10%. And if you are able to find good opportunity at accessing the services of a mentor or a guide in your preparation who can, very strongly influence the course of your preparation. And of course, if you are able to see that the optional is contributing in a very big way to your general studies, you can go for that optional. These, I would say, are the 4 important criteria which we should keep in mind before we select an optional. Now, what about political science? Now, before looking into whether political science is a good optional or not, let us try and find out the nature of this optional. The first thing which has become a very important reason as to why political science was being chosen by a lot of students in recent times is primarily because of the fact that political science is a background neutral optional. It means whether you are from a technical background or a humanities background, or even if you are a literature student from any background can actually pick up political science and international relations. You can still feel comfortable with the content of this subject. So this is one very important reason as to why a good number of students are looking towards political science as a potential optional for their preparation for civil services. So it is a background neutral optional. So if you are from a science background or if you are a technically qualified candidate, you don't have to worry whether political science is comfortable for you or not. You don't have to worry about that because political science is background neutral. Okay. There are topics in political science which can be understood or which can be comprehensible for students of any background. Therefore, this is one reason as to why political science had become very popular in recent times. And secondly, political science, by nature has a very rich content and varied content, in fact. There were some students who used to say, if we take up political science and international relations, we're supposed to read 2 subjects, That's what candidates tend to feel sometimes, Paper 1 is about political theory and Indian government and politics, and paper 2 is about international relations, therefore 2 subjects, It's not actually like that. It's about politics, okay? Political science is about politics. Paper 1 is about the theory of politics. And section B in paper 1 is about Indian politics. And paper 2 is about international politics, how countries engage with each other, how countries conflict, how they accommodate each other's interests, how countries tend to cooperate, find common grounds, how countries tend to conduct foreign relations and engage in diplomacy. This is content of paper 2. That's about international politics. So it's actually the study of politics, whether it is paper 1 or paper 2. Okay, therefore, political science is not about studying two different subjects, right? But that's what is usually a general understanding of candidates about political science. Rendu subjects chadavalante kada ani, but that's not the truth in reality. The subject matter of political science, the content of political science is very rich and varied. You study about political theory, you study about several concepts in political science like, state and liberty, equality, justice, the idea of justice. You study Indian government and politics, the dynamics of Indian politics, in fact, how the political process in India had unfolded since the time India had become independent. What are the various perspectives of Indian freedom struggle? What is the nature of Indian constitution? And how political process had unfolded itself over a period of time. This is what we study as a part of paper 1 in political science and international relations. In second paper, we study concepts in international relations. We study how the international system had, unfolded. What was the nature of the interaction? How the international system is organized? What were the important strategic doctrines and important events in international relations? This is what we study as section A, paper 1. And section B, paper 2 is about Indian foreign affairs. Therefore, there is a very varied content in political science. You study a little bit of Indian history, okay, both at the time of freedom struggle as well as India after independence. Then we also study, as a part of paper 1, section A, we study political thinkers and concepts. Okay. Then we study Indian constitution and the dynamics of Indian politics. Okay. Then we study international relations. So the subject matter, the content of political science is very rich. It's very varied. It is therefore very attractive for a lot of students. Political science is very attractive for a lot of students because primarily of the content. It's very interesting. And thirdly, political science by nature has got a very close affinity with current affairs. Civil service examination is about being contemporary, being contemporaneous rather, right? It requires the candidates to be update. Like it requires the candidates to be abreast with recent developments in social life, in political life, in economic systems, in strategic systems, okay, in international relations. Candidates required to be completely updated. You cannot clear the examination, civil service examination, unless you are strong in current affairs. Now, please remember that political science probably has the greatest affinity with current affairs. Everything that you study as a part of your current affairs contributes to political science. And your study of political science in turn gives clarity about a lot of issues and their background, which makes you strong in current events. Therefore, political science and current events, they have, let's say, a symbiotic relationship. Both complement each other very well. Okay. And that's the reason why I keep telling to the students that political science is a very, very relevant optional in the present scheme or design of the civil services examination. Because the entire section B, paper 2, entire section B, paper 1, and even in several of the concepts that you learn in section A, paper 1 and paper 2, can be enriched with the content that you prepare as a part of your current events or current affairs. Okay. Therefore, political science and current events have very close affinity and they both complement each other very well. Okay. That is another very important aspect of political science preparation. Okay. Fourthly, as I told you, this is one of the reasons as to why political science is considered to be very relevant in the present scheme of the examination. Okay. And fourthly, one another reason as to why a lot of students tend to find interest in political science is primarily because of the fact that political science covers syllabus in almost all the papers of general studies. In paper 1, political science syllabus covers syllabus related to modern Indian history. you have topics in political science like perspectives on Indian freedom struggle, strategies of Indian freedom struggle. You have these topics in political science related to movements, okay, tribal movements and the working class movements in India, okay. In paper 1, even topics related to India after independence are also covered as a part of your syllabus in political science. So, political science contributes very heavily for your preparation in paper 1 of general studies. And paper 2, that the entire syllabus of paper 2 is covered within the syllabus of political science and international relations. In paper 2, you have Indian polity, Indian diaspora and India's foreign affairs. Almost all the topics in paper 2 completely are covered as a part of the syllabus in political science. Okay. And in paper 3 also, there are a lot of topics which are covered within political science. For example, you have topics related to economy, okay, like planning, land reforms, liberalization, new economic policy, all these topics are covered within the syllabus of political science. And again, topics related to internal security are also covered as a part of your preparation in political science. Okay. And fourthly, you have ethics paper. Several concepts that you study as a part of ethics and several thinkers that you study as a part of ethics are also covered within the syllabus of political science. Okay. So overall, political science, contributes to every paper in your general studies. And that's the reason why, political science students tend to do well in GS. They should be extremely strong in paper 2, obviously. They have much broader vistas as far as several segments of syllabus in paper 1 GS is concerned. And also, political science students have a very strong exposure to several concepts that we study as a part of paper 3 general studies. And of course, as I told you, a lot of concepts in paper 4 also are covered within the syllabus of political science. Concepts like utilitarianism, concepts like ends justifying the means, Gandhian ethics, okay, Nicomachean ethics as a part of your understanding of thinkers related to ethics paper. They're all covered as a part of your political science syllabus. Okay. So, political science contributes very richly, let me say, to your preparation for general studies. Okay. And that there are 2 important things that every candidate preparing for civil services requires to keep in mind. Firstly, candidates who are very successful in civil services tend to adopt an interdisciplinary approach. You got to be interdisciplinary. You got to learn to correlate. For example, economy, science and technology, environment, internal security are included in paper 3. Okay. Now, these 4 are combined because each is related to other. The compulsions for economic development require deployment of science and technology. The deployment of science and technology may have an adverse impact on environment. Adverse impact on environment could lead to disasters which could threaten internal security. Each and every segment in a section in paper 3 of general studies is correlated. There's an interconnection. Here, the civil services examination is patterned, which compels students to approach in an interdisciplinary manner. So interdisciplinary approach is very important for candidates. First is this. And secondly, every candidate who is preparing for civil services requires to be contemporaneous. He is required to be very strong in current events, current affairs. So if these 2 criteria are very important for a successful candidate, these are the same criteria which are required for a candidate who is preparing with the civil service, with political science and international relations as his options. Candidate requires to be interdisciplinary. Candidate requires to be contemporaneous. This is a requirement for candidates who are preparing with PSIR as an option for civil services. Now, please remember, as I told you, everything that you study as a part of your political science is going to enrich one or another part of your general studies. There is no doubt about that. Whether it's in preliminary or in mains or even in the personality test also, whatever you study as a part of political science is going to be helpful to you at any stage of your preparation, the civil services examination. Everything that you study as a part of political science. I can cite so many examples from different parts of the syllabus in political science which have appeared as GS, as questions in general studies in preliminary, which have appeared as questions in general studies in mains. Even, please remember that since 2015, if you look at the general essay paper, you will see that at least one general essay every year is from some topic which is a part of syllabus in political science and international relations. At least coincidentally. For example, capitalism and development, water disputes of India with its neighbors, concept of cooperative federation, need for UN reforms, relevance of NAM, so many topics which have appeared as a part of your general essay. They were directly given from the syllabus of political science. Okay, so if you keep these things in mind, if you understand that your preparation requires to be interdisciplinary, your preparation requires to be contemporaneous for you to be a successful candidate in the civil services examination. Okay, these are the same very requirements which a candidate requires to incorporate while preparing for political science and international relations. So keep this in mind, my dear friends. And this is primarily the nature of the optional called political science. Okay, it's background neutral. So anybody from whatever background can pick up political science and still feel comfortable with the content of this subject. Secondly, the content in political science is very rich and very varied. It can actually attract your attention. It can indulge you. It can keep you occupied. It can absorb your attention very, very significantly. Okay. Thirdly, as I told you, you got to be strong in current events to clear the civil service examination, and whatever you study as a part of your current affairs is definitely going to be helpful for you in political science at somewhere or another, and whatever you study in political science tends to strengthen your preparation with preparation of current affairs. Okay, both of them complement each other in a very significant manner. And fourthly, as I told you, political science covers syllabus in almost all the 4 papers of general studies and contributes very heavily, so much so that I've been looking at some videos, and there were a good number of claims which say that, out of the total marks in your civil services mains, including your optional, your 4 general studies papers and everything, right? Just by reading political science syllabus, anywhere between 900 marks is what you're going to cover. Okay, if your total preparation is for 1750 marks, 900 marks can be covered by studying the syllabus of political science. Okay, that shows how relevant this optional is. And that's the reason why we see that political science had been emerging in recent times as a very popular optional among the students preparing for civil services. Okay, in 2020, you know that nearly 1900 students have had political science and international relations as their optional for civil services mains. Okay, and political science and international relations had shown a success rate of approximately 9%. It means that 9 students out of every 100 who have taken the mains examination with political science have, got themselves selected. That shows that success rate of political science is good. Okay, so political science therefore becomes a very, a potentially very important choice for students preparing for civil services. Okay, so keep this in mind, and you can think about political science. Don't have to be worried about the content. Okay, don't have to be worried about success rate. Don't have to be worried about the availability of literature or guidance and mentorship for political science. Okay, political science is a good optional. Think about it seriously before you select an optional. Thank you so much.